Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to the second video of my web development bootcamp 2021. So in this particular video, we are going to take a look at HTML basics, and HTML simply stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it is used to provide structure to the content appearing on a website. So HTML is purely for adding content to a web page, and CSS is the one that is concerned with styling this content. So websites that have HTML only will not look pretty as those using CSS. Now I also highly recommend that you check out this video. So in this particular video, I'll show you how you can set up your Visual Studio Code development environment for web developers. Before we continue, I have a quick announcement. If I come to the homepage of my channel, you'll see that now we have this button right here saying join, and this is because I turned on channel membership, and once you click on join, you'll be able to join as a member, either as a top fan or a super fan. The general goal is to support me, but you will also get cool benefits like loyalty badges next to your name in comments and live chat, custom emoji to use in comments and live chat, and many more. So you can go through them and see what I'll have to offer for you. With that said, now we can go on and create our first HTML project. So I'll just come to the desktop of my computer here, and I'll create a new folder just by right clicking, going to new and then folder, and I'll just say HTML. And then in this folder we are going to add a HTML file, and also I'll add this folder right here saying images. So let's first add this folder, and this folder only contain an image. Okay, so images, and then in here I only have one image. You can use any image that you want, and I'll be using this to show you how you can add images in a HTML web page. Now before we add any HTML file, in the last video about Visual Studio Code, I showed you several ways in which you can open a project with Visual Studio Code, and the one that I mostly like is to just come at the path here, type cmd, hit enter, and this will open that path on command prompt. And then from the command prompt I can just use this command, which is a Visual Studio Code command. So if you have Visual Studio Code installed in your machine, write this command and hit enter, and then our HTML folder will open on Visual Studio Code. Now we have our folder here opened on Visual Studio Code. I can just maximize that, and all we have is that folder that we added with just one image. Now to create a HTML file, just go to this icon right here, click on it, and then say index.html. So every website on the internet must have this index.html file, because this index.html file is considered as the root of your website. So on the internet, when you host your website, the servers will always look for this particular file as the start of your website. Now right here we can start taking a look at the HTML structure. And the first thing that we usually write is the doc type declaration. So the doc type declaration will look like this. I just click on that and we have this declaration right there. It just have a less than sign here and then an exclamation mark, the word doc type in capital letters, but this is not mandatory. You can use small letters if you want, but this is the convention of using capital letters, and then the word HTML and a greater than sign. So this declaration simply tells the browser what kind of document or file to expect, and the code that we write in this particular file from now on will be interpreted by the browser as HTML5 code. Okay, and then after this we usually have a HTML tag. So this HTML tag is considered as our root tag of our web page. So when I click the greater than sign, you'll see Visual Studio Code will autocomplete our tag here. And this is how tags are written in HTML. This is usually the opening tag, and this is usually the closing tag. And the difference is only this / in front of our HTML here. And then inside our tags is where we can include more tags, or we can include content in here. And this tag, the way it's complete this way, it's now called a HTML element. So when you hear me say a HTML element, I am meaning the complete tag, including the opening tag and the closing tag. Although some tags don't have the closing tag, as we will see in a few. So in here, we usually start with the head tag. I can just type head in VS Code and then hit enter. And this is Emmet shortcuts, which I showed you in the last video about Visual Studio Code. So please make sure you check it out. And after the head, we usually have the body tag. So this will always be the structure of a HTML document, where we have doc type and then HTML, and then inside the HTML we usually have two other tags which are at the same level, the head tag and the body tag. So tags at the same level, they are called siblings, and then tags nested inside another tag, they are called child of that particular tag. So here head and body are children of our HTML tag, and the HTML tag is the parent of these particular tags. So with that, we can continue seeing what we can include on our head tag. So in our head tag, we usually include a couple of tags to provide information about our web page. So most of the information that we include in the head tag will not be visible to the user. Only one of them that I am sure will be visible to the user, and that is the title tag. So from the head, we can include the title tag, and at the title is where we give our web page a title, and we can say HTML project. And let me just save this file using Control S, or you can just come to file here and then click on save, and then I'll just come hover over index.html, right click, and then I have this open with Live Server. So Live Server is a Visual Studio Code extension which I have it installed to help me learn this HTML project, and I showed you how to install extensions in the last video. So I'll click on open with the Live Server, and this will open our file here on the browser, and there we go. So right now we don't have any content, but we have this title that we have just added, HTML project. So now we can use more tags at our head tag. We usually have a couple of meta tags. So the first meta tag is a UTF meta tag. So if I scroll to this list here, I click on meta :UTF-8, then I'll get an auto completion of this tag, because you don't have to actually cram this, okay? And what this line tells our browser is to use UTF-8 character encoding, and this character encoding simply helps our browser to convert our code here into machine readable code, which is essentially ones and zeros. Another meta tag that you may come along is the viewport meta tag, so VP, and this simply helps in mobile responsiveness. So this tells the browser how to behave in mobile mode. And then we have another meta tag, which is the description meta tag, and here you can describe your web page, and this description is mostly used by the web crawlers for SEO purposes. So if you want your page to rank higher, e.g. on Google, you'll have to include such a meta tag, okay? And other tags that you may find on the head is the one that links to a CSS file. So I can just come here, and this is how we can link to a particular CSS file. So we have these particular attributes. So these are called attributes. We have rel and style sheet, and then we have href here, which points to that particular file. So a HTML attribute should always be on the opening tag. Okay, it should never be on a closing tag, and it have a name here and an equal sign and then a value. So that is how an attribute usually looks like. And you can see the tags that we have included here, they are only single tags. They don't have the opening and the closing tag. They only have the opening tag. And if I save this file, you'll see that I have Prettier installed and it will auto close them. And this is now called a self-closing tag. So it can either be this way or it can be just an opening tag. And the reason why we have this kind of tags is because some tags don't need to have content in them. So remember, we have a head here and a closing tag here, and then we have content in here. So some tags don't need to have content, and therefore they are just a single tag with a bunch of attributes. Now another tag that you may include at the head is a tag linking to a JavaScript file. So we have this script tag, and it have an src attribute which can point to a particular JavaScript file, e.g. main.js, and then the closing tag. So a script tag have an opening and a closing tag because you have an option of writing JavaScript code in here. Okay. Now with that, we can move on to the body and talk about the tags that you can use at the body. So inside the body, we will start by talking about the headings. So headings range from H1 to H6. H1 is the biggest, H6 is the smallest. So if I click H and then scroll at the top, you can see we have H1 to H6. When I click H1 and then I say maybe my portfolio, and I can duplicate this using Alt, Shift and the bottom arrow. I duplicate 5 more times and I change this to H2. Remember to also include the closing there. Include a H3 up to H6, okay? H5 and then H6. If I save this and then go to my browser, you will see that we will now have a big heading to start with and a small heading to end with. So this is the way you can include headings in a web page. Mostly you'll only use H1, H2 and H3, and you will rarely use the other ones, okay? But those are headings in HTML, so I can just remove that. Another tag that you may come along is the paragraph tag, and you can use a paragraph tag to add content or text in here in form of paragraphs. So right here I can just enter some dummy text. I can say Lorem and then hit enter, and you can see Visual Studio Code generated this dummy text for us. And when we save that, now when I come to the browser, you will see that we will have a heading and a long paragraph. So if I duplicate this paragraph, I can highlight it, use Alt, Shift and the bottom arrow to duplicate it. You will see that we will now have two paragraphs separated by some spacing right there. Okay, and that is how you can add paragraphs into a web page. Now from here we can talk about elements that you can use to style your text in HTML, and we will go through a bunch of them. And let's start with an element for making text bold. So we have this B tag, and if we say right here bold, I save that and then come here, you will see that the text that is written as bold is now bold than the rest. And another tag that you can use to make a text bold is the strong tag. So if I say strong and then right here I say bold also, I save that file and then come back, you will see that now bold also is in bold. And the difference is that now the one that we have added with strong tag will be considered as more important by the browser and web crawlers than the one that we have just used a B tag. So if you want to consider text as important, you can use the strong tag. or you can use the emphasis tag, which is abbreviated as EM. So this is an important text, and if we save that and come back here, you will see that important text right here is in italics, and it is also considered important, the one that we add with EM and the one that we add with the strong tag. Another way that you can make text to be in italics is the I tag. So if I add I and include a bunch of text here, maybe italic text, I save that and then come back here, you'll see that italic text right here is also in italic, but the one that we added with EM is considered more important than this one. Now another tag that you can use is for underlining a text. So I can use a U tag and then maybe include my name, Chao, and then come back here. I have to save this first. Come to the browser. This will refresh and you'll see that Chao here is underlined. So some other tags that I can show you, two more for styling the text, is the superscript and the subscript. So let's say we want to add 5th of March, and we want 5th to appear at the top of number 5 here. So what we can do is to include a superscript tag, and in here I can say th. I remove that spacing, I save that, and now you'll see that th will appear at the top of 5. So now you can see that th here is above our 5. If you want it to be below, you can use the subscript, so sub. If I save that, now th will move to the bottom of 5, and that is how you can write some superscript and subscript text. Now I have another concept that I can explain from here. We have what we call block level elements and inline elements. So block level elements usually start on a new line. This is a block level element and P is a block level element. They always start on a new line. So those are examples of block level elements. And then the ones that we have used in here, they don't go to the next line, and these are called inline elements. Okay, they don't start on a new line. And there is another tag that you'll always see called a span tag, and a span tag is used to maybe group some kind of text so that you can style that text with CSS. But this span tag does not affect the flow of our text because it is also an inline element. So other tags that you might see is the div tag, and the div tag is used to divide our code into different sections. They don't have any visual effect, so you can wrap our content in here with a div tag just like this, but it won't have any visual effect on our web page. But you can select it with CSS and style our web page using CSS. And then another tag for dividing our page into different sections is actually the section tag. So you might also come across the section tag. Two other tags that I want to tell you is the one that adds a break in our text. So if we come here, let's say we want Chao here to start on a new line. What you can do is to come before that word Chao here, and then you can use a BR tag. So BR here stands for break, and this will just break our line here, and Chao will start on a new line. So if we save that and come back here, you'll see that Chao starts on a new line. Okay, it is just for breaking that line. Another one is the HR, and the HR stands for horizontal rule, and it will add a horizontal line. So if I save that and then come back to the browser, you'll now see that we will have this horizontal line right there, and you can style this line using CSS. Now with this, we can move on to the next lesson, which is about lists. And lists can be added as an ordered list or ordered list. An ordered list, you use UL, and then in here you can use a bunch of li tags to create a list. I can say HTML, and then right here I can add another one, I say CSS, and then right here I can add another one, I say JavaScript. And when I save that, go to the browser. Now we will have a list: HTML, CSS, JavaScript. You can see those bullet points. If you want it to be numbered, we can use ordered list. The difference is that instead of UL here, we use OL for ordered list. And always remember to close your tag correctly, okay? Right here I am using an extension called auto rename tag, okay? And that is why it's automatically changing itself at the end. Now when I save that, I come back to the browser, you'll see that we have something is wrong. Let me manually refresh. You can now see that 1, 2, 3 is numbered, which is very cool. So that is it about list, and you can also nest lists if you want. For example, right here you can include a UL, and then this is an ordered list, LI for list item, and I can say hello. I save that, and now you'll see that we will have another list below of HTML. So that is nesting of lists. Now that is it for the lists. We can now take a look at links. So links are used to connect our web files, or we can use a link to link to another website or a file out of our website, okay? So we use an A tag standing for anchor link or hyperlink to add links to our website. So if I click enter, now right here we will have a href attribute which should include a URL to a particular file or link, okay? Now to correctly demonstrate this, let me just add another folder. I can add a folder using this particular icon. I call it pages. I hit enter, and then inside the pages I create a file called about.html. I hit enter. Now in about.html we can generate a HTML sample using control space, and then I click on HTML sample, and you'll see that this initial structure of our web page will automatically be generated for us. And all I will do, I can change the title to about, and then right here maybe I can add a h2 of about, and then at the bottom here we will also include a link that will link back to our home page. And how we do that is using the A tag. We have href, and now we should go to our index.html file or point to this file. We can do that in several ways. The first way is using a /, and this will indicate the root of our website or project. And now we can navigate to index.html, and then right here I can just say home, and I save that file. And then from index.html I can use the /, it will indicate the root of our web page, and then go to pages, and then go to about.html, and then right here I can just say about, and I save that. Now when I come to the browser, you'll see that we will have an about link. When we click on about, we go to the about file which had a h2 heading and a link to our home page. When I click home, we get back to our home page. Now another way that you can use to link this file is by doing this way. So right now we are inside the pages folder. We can get out of the pages folder like one level up using 2 dots and then a /. This will get us out of the pages folder, and then we can access index.html file. So you can do the previous approach, or you can do this approach, or you might come across it. So now when I save that file, come back here, we are at my portfolio. I click about, we go to the about page, I click home, and it still works, which is really cool. Now let me come to the index.html file. We can add more links right here. For example, we can link to a particular website or a file on the internet. So let's add a link to Google. I'll say https://2/ and then google.com. That is the domain name of Google. And then right here I can say Google. And when I click on it, it doesn't do anything, which means something is wrong. So this should be https. I save that file. When we come back, let's now click on Google, and that will take us to google.com. Now this is the complete path right here of google.com, and now this is known as an absolute path, while this path, which is relative to our current page, is called relative path. Now when we clicked on Google, you notice that it opened on the same tab that we are in, and it navigated out of our site. So if we want to open that link on a different tab, we can use an attribute called target, and right here the value is _blank. I save that file, and then when we come back, now when I click on Google, it should open on a new tab. I click on Google, and now you can see it's opening on a new tab, which is really cool. And we can now go back to our website easily. Now that is it for links, and we can see how we can work with images. So right here, to add an image, you can just add an img tag, and then right here you can add either an absolute or a relative path. So to link to our image right here, we can just use images, which is the name of our folder here, / and then avatar. When we do this, our browser will assume that this images folder is at the same level as our index.html file. And then right here, the alt provides more information about this image. So right here I can just say avatar, and this is helpful for SEO purposes and accessibility reasons. And you can see that an image is just a single tag. It doesn't have that closing tag because we don't need to add any content in it. I save that, and then when I come back, you'll now see we will have a very big image right there. Now the thing is, we have some other attributes which we can use to resize the image. We have the width. I can set this to 200 px, and we also have the height, but when we include the width, height will be added automatically. Another thing is that mostly you style your images using CSS. Okay, so if I come back here, you can see that now we have that particular image, which is really cool. Now another thing is that you can use images inside links. So I can just cut that, and instead of about here, I can paste that image. So I can remove the text and include the image there and save. So the content of our link is that image. When we come back, you will see that now this is a link, and when I hover over it, the cursor is changing its icon. When I click on this image, it will take us to about.html file. Home, we get to portfolio. So far I think we have used most tags that you may require to create a web page. There are more, but I won't go through all of them. So just to mention other tags that you can check out: the tags for adding a video, and then the tags for adding a form. So a form, we usually have a form tag, and we can have a bunch of input tags right there. And then you can check a tag of adding a table, but I won't go through these tags. So for table, you can add a table row using tr, and then you can use a td to add some data in there. So that is it for this video. I hope it was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one, in which we will take a look at the basics of CSS.